I've never been the type of person who likes to go home. Even though that house was in the middle of Briarwood Heights, where just hearing the name made you smell like money, with a flat-cut lawn rows of bright red maple trees every fall and a large iron gate that automatically opened with a code, I still felt like an outsider. The last time I drove there was on a Friday night, when my phone vibrated non-stop, from my mother, father, and even Vanessa, my younger sister. The message was just a few words: "Go home, Dominic. It's important. No inquiries. No invitation." I sat quietly in the office parking lot for nearly an hour, holding the steering wheel, looking far away through the rain-soaked window. I know well what that kind of important thing usually is. A kind of financial crisis wrapped up in the guise of "we're family." I'm Dominic Walsh, 27, an independent financial advisor in downtown Charlotte. I paid my college tuition, bought my small apartment, built a name for myself in the industry. And in my parents' eyes, all of that is still not as good as Vanessa knowing how to choose the right foundation color for her skin. When I got home, dinner was ready: grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, expensive white wine. My mother always keeps everything neat. Dad sat at the head of the table, his voice as loud as always. "You're home. Finally have time to stop by." I nodded, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Vanessa put on a cream fur coat, applied lip gloss, and sat cross-legged like she was at a brunch in Beverly Hills. "Dominic," she began, "I'm considering buying a house, only about $1.2 million, near the lake with its gym. But the bank needs a co-signer." I looked up, half in confusion, half in anticipation. "You mean you want me to be the one to borrow the loan?" My father immediately interjected. "It's just a formality. It doesn't matter. Your brother has a good record in our family. Why don't we help each other?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. I work in finance. I know fully that co-signing is not just a formal. It is a legally binding commitment. If Vanessa can't pay, I'll be the one to bear the debt. "Does Vanessa have a stable job now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She avoided my eyes and shrugged. "I just left a fashion company. I'm developing my brand." I nodded, just another way of saying unemployed. I looked towards my mother. She avoided my eyes. Dad started to get angry. His voice grew louder. "You always do high things, always think you are better than others." I don't react, I'm just telling the truth. You can't sign on to something you know is unsustainable. If Vanessa wants a house, she should have a steady income, at the very least. And then the atmosphere exploded, as I expected. "Then you go," my father growled. "From now on, this house no longer has a son named Dominic. Return the key. Don't come back." My mother still said nothing. Vanessa. No apology. I stood up and left the keys on the table. There's nothing more to say. On the drive home, I didn't cry. But I'm not calm either. I feel empty. I never really belonged in that house. And now I was officially confirmed. But I didn't know. That night's eviction was just the beginning of a series of truths my family had hidden for so long. 3 days after being evicted, I received a strange call early in the morning. "Dominic, it's you, Thad." I was silent for a few seconds. I hadn't heard that name in years. No one in the family even mentioned him anymore. Thad was Mom's older brother who had once worked with Dad and then suddenly disappeared from parties. Thanksgivings, even family photos. Mom would say, "He has his problems," whenever I asked. "He doesn't get along with your father." "You're standing under my house," he said. "There's something I need to see." I walked down, filled with caution. A man in his 60s, slightly stooped, wearing an old jean jacket and an older baseball cap. Silver gray hair, but clear eyes. He was holding a cardboard box and a travel bag. "You heard the story," he said without being asked. Lloyd fired you, I nodded. It's not the first time you've been angry, but this time it seems real. He laughed dryly. You think I disappeared because of an argument about money? Do you know why Lloyd and I disagreed? I shrugged. The company had some disagreement. My mother said so. Thad put down the carton and opened it. Inside are files, letters, and bank statements, things that only those inside have. You're the only one in this family who the facade of success hasn't lulled Lloyd created. And now you need to know the truth. I stood still, listening to him talk. Each sentence was like a knife cutting into the glossy layer I once believed was a solid foundation. Turns out the unfinished houses and the deposits customers didn't get back were money revolving around to keep Vanessa on trips to Italy, designer bags, and failed startups. Lloyd doesn't just take out personal loans. He used the company's name to sign for the money, then internally allocated it for the family's expenses, and mainly Vanessa's. You warned, Patricia. Thad said, his voice slow. Do you think your mother doesn't know? She does. But she believes Lloyd. Or she's afraid of the truth. Worse, maybe she thinks as long as things keep looking good, the truth doesn't need to exist. I did not respond. In my mind, an image of my mother folding napkins on the Sunday breakfast table appeared. Calm face, eyes avoid each time something is dissatisfying. Did you know everything? When you asked me to help Vanessa borrow money, and Dominic, Mr. Thad said, looking straight at me, Vanessa didn't stop at ask for. I signed the loan. It was fake my signature on many financial documents. I felt like my whole body was falling off a floor. You have proof, he said, holding a file copy. The banker, a girl named Meredith, called you because the signature was strange. Meredith, my high school classmate, ours at Briarwood Credit Union. I used to think loved ones would never push us to the brink of betrayal, but my family, my bloodline, wrote my name on the $1 million debt I never touched. You have two choices. Thad looked at me, his voice hard. Be quiet, let everything continue to drift towards the abyss, or open the curtain, let everyone see the real scene. I looked into the document bin. It's not just evidence, that is evidence of a whole fake life. A system that I once called home. Will you help me bring everything to light? I asked. Don't need your help, he said. Just need you. Don't turn away like they used to do. One Monday afternoon, I walked into the Briarwood Credit Union branch. Not because I have a trade, but because I need to face someone. Meredith Gallagher. She is my old classmate from high school, used to do an American history presentation with me and have lunch together when we were not in the popular group. Now she works as a manager in the personal credit department. And be the first to warn me. You're here, Meredith said after closing the door to the small conference room. I apologize for the unauthorized communication, but when I saw your name on a $1.2 million real estate loan application, I knew something was wrong. I nodded, looking at Meredith's file in front of me. The first page is the loan application, leading borrower name Vanessa Walsh, cosigner Dominic Walsh. She provided a copy of her ID card and personal income statement, but the file lacked documents verifying her company's revenue. When I contacted her, she said she was updating. But what made me stop was this signature. Meredith pointed. I looked at the familiar blue ink. My name. Correct spelling. Correct handwritten font. Only thing, I have never held that pen. This is not my signature, I said, my voice low. Meredith nodded slightly. I know. I compared it to the old bank document you signed when you opened your student account. The features are completely different. Also, Vanessa's income statement has the stamp of an interior design company, but that company is not licensed to operate in North Carolina." I felt like I was listening to someone describe a crime movie, except the main character was my sister. Meredith continued. "The bank denied the loan, not because of knowledge of forgery, but because of income ineligibility. But if the signature forgery is investigated, Vanessa could face criminal prosecution." I leaned back in the chair. In my head, memories appeared the scene of Vanessa calling me selfish, my father banging the table, my mother bowing her head in silence. And now, they have put my name on a lie. I thank Meredith. Before leaving, she gently held my hand. "Dom, I don't know what you're planning to do, but you're a decent person. Don't let them drag you down just because they don't know the limits." That evening, I went home. Not a big house in Briarwood. It's my small apartment, where there are no bronze statues, classic hanging paintings, or a 12-mode coffee maker. It's just me and a file. I took pictures of everything. Sent it to Thad. Minutes later, my phone rang. "Vanessa." I hesitated for a beat, then I picked up the phone. "Dom, are you going to the bank?" Her voice was not angry, but scared. "Yes. Is there anything you want to say, Silent?" I continued. "I used your name. I signed your name. I submitted fake documents." Vanessa whispered, "I don't know what to do anymore. Dad said, I won't let you get into that situation. Dad said everything will be approved as long as I have your name. I just thought everything would be better if I had that house." I was silent, not out of anger, but because I'm too tired to be angry. "Vanessa," I said slowly, "life is not an episode where every mistake has someone else to fix it for you. You are 25 years old, not a child who needs to be saved. Are you going to denounce me?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said I will not hide the truth. Then I hung up. That night I opened the email and wrote you, "Alexander Reeves, District Attorney Dad's longtime poker-playing friend. I don't ask forgiveness for anyone. I just ask so that victims can be compensated, so that those who were truly harmed have a voice." And 2 weeks after the last call with Vanessa, the house at 18 Briarwood Heights, which had once been a symbol of the Walsh family's fake success, was surrounded for the first time not by words of admiration, but by the black SUV of the district attorney's office and 2 civilian vehicles with economic investigation license plates. Dominic wasn't there that morning. He only received a short text message from Alexander Reeves at 6:42 a.m. "Initial steps are being taken, as agreed." That was how a veteran lawyer informed him that his family's mask was being legally taken down, layer by layer, quietly but decisively. Lloyd Walsh opened the door in gray silk pajamas, his eyes shocked when he saw Reeves standing in the middle of the yard with 2 investigators holding a file and a search warrant, no number 8 cuffs. No press. It was a deal, but also a blow. Reeves said shortly, "Lloyd, you know what we have. And you know you've taught your son too well to keep quiet forever." Lloyd looked at the documents, recognizing each page as evidence. Statements from Francis, the former treasurer, dismissed from the company for no reason. Internal spending invoices are backdated. Unfinished contracts are never completed. And the signature, which he encouraged his daughter to forge. As Patricia walked down the stairs, still holding her cup of tea, she saw the husband she once thought was untouchable, now taking a step back. No more shouting, no more loud voices overwhelming the entire table. Just one 60-year-old man is considering how much of his fortune can be kept after the truth is revealed. The deal was put on the table: surrender the license, liquidate real estate to repay the debt of at least 23 affected customers, and accept a 3-year financial supervision under court supervision to avoid criminal charges. With a blank expression but seemingly relieved eyes, Patricia was the first to speak. "We agree." Lloyd just sat still. He did not object, did not sign immediately. Ben did not turn the table as usual. Perhaps for the first time he understood that he no longer had control over the story. Vanessa emerged from the upper floor, her hair disheveled and her gaze unfocused. She had heard the conversation and had seen Dominic, who had been standing outside, not coming in. They looked at each other for a long moment. There was no more blame, no more feigned remorse. Only a distance had long been there now, measured by the eyes. A week later, the house was listed on the market with a brief description: 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom property in Briarwood Heights, in need of renovation. Dominic read that line and just smiled slightly. No one wrote. It was once a place to hide financial secrets that could land a family in prison. Patricia started working part-time at a small flower shop near her old home. She told her friends it was to kill time, but deep down she knew she was paying something back. Vanessa sold the old apartment she bought with her father's money and moved to a small studio in the northern suburbs. She took an unpaid internship at an interior design company and for the first time had to arrive at the office at 8 a.m., and there was no massage chair. She didn't complain. There's no one left to complain to. After months of negotiations, Lloyd was hired as a construction supervisor at a company that had been his rival. Hourly salary. There are no public vehicles. No office. Only have hard hats and rubber boots and must be at the construction site every morning at 5 a.m. One afternoon, he stopped by Dominic's new office, a small but bright space on the second floor of an old building. Not being polite, not asking permission first, and just standing there silent. You can call the bank about the forged signature, Lloyd said, his voice hoarse. But I didn't. Dominic looked at him and replied, "You don't need to call. When a system is built on lies, it will collapse independently. Your name is just a catalyst, not the reason." Lloyd looked at the floor for a moment, then nodded slightly. "I understand what you once knew, but have forgotten. You taught Vanessa wrong. You taught me wrong, but I can correct it myself." Dominic simply replied, "I didn't change anything. I just chose not to continue." They sat there for a while, not saying anything else. Outside the glass door, the season's first rain fell, not heavy, but enough to wash away the dust. The Walsh family once built their home on fame, flashiness, and fakery. Now they start again, not with expensive materials, but with the truth. 6 months have passed since the morning the investigation car parked in front of 18 Briarwood, and each of the Walsh family now lives in a completely different reality. No more crystal chandeliers, no more pretend perfect dinners, and most importantly, no one is allowed to fool themselves anymore. Dominic moved his office from the basement of the Central Financial Building to a small room on the second floor of the South End neighborhood. Not prominent, no big sign. Still, the bright light old wooden floors and the smell of coffee from the ground floor shop made every morning less heavy. He no longer has the burden of proving that he is better than anyone else and is not a reasonable son or a responsible older brother. He is just himself. A person who helps others manage their finances, starting over from real numbers, no imaginary numbers, no unrealistic expectations. One Saturday, Patricia arrived, unannounced, holding a bag of toast and a small box of flowers. "This is for the new office," she said, placing a miniature pot of lavender on the reception desk. "It needs a little green." Dominic did not invite him to sit down, but don't push it away either. He let her choose a seat by the window. Patricia looked around for a moment. "Mom goes to work 3 hours a day. The flower shop is 4 blocks away. The owner's name is Lorraine. Strict but kind. Mom learned how to classify flowers just by smell. No need to look." Dominic nodded slightly. He didn't know why she told him that. To show that she is changing. Or simply need to say out loud that you are no longer useless. She looked at him, her eyes not apologizing, but not hiding either. "I know I didn't do the right thing. I was silent when I should have spoken up, and I loved in the wrong way. Dominic replied, "Sometimes, not speaking up is a choice that has consequences." Patricia leaned forward as if begging for something, but not in words, just a look. Dominic said softly, "I don't hate you, Mom, but I don't live that way anymore." She nodded. No tears, no drama, just a mother finally realizing that the truth is not something that can wait for others to accept it for her. That afternoon, Vanessa texted, "Don't ask for help, no, sorry." Just a photo, her in a cream uniform sitting in front of a laptop in a small shared office next to the words "Intern, Week 6. Today, I got my first design approved. Dominic looked at that photo for a long time. Something changed. It wasn't Vanessa. It's how he looks at her, no more expectations or anger. Just a person facing reality for the first time, just like he did. That night, Lloyd called. A short call after 6 months of silence. "Are you okay?" he asked. His voice no longer resonated, which was almost a whisper. "Fine," Dominic replied. "Dad is doing construction work on the Monroe side. Shows up at 6 a.m., comes home at 3 p.m., back hurts, but sleeps better than before." Silence lasted for a long time. "I don't think you'll forgive me," he said. Dominic replied, "I haven't forgiven, but I'm not trying to get revenge either." Lloyd smiled small and real. "That sentence is worth engraving on the wall." Dominic just said, "No need to engrave, just remember." The call ended. Not a single, "I love you, Dad." No, we are family. But Dominic knew, for the first time in a long time, that his father wasn't lying. Dominic stopped by Vanessa's studio the following weekend just as she was confused with her first customer, a single mother who wanted to renovate her 2-room apartment. Dominic didn't comment. He only said one thing as he left: "Don't do anything to need others to cover for." Vanessa nodded. "I have no one else to hide for," he smiled. Not for fun, but because, in the end, she understood. Summer came early that year, and with it came a meeting. No calendar, no formal invitation, and no long table covered with lace. The organizer is Dominic. The location is a small meeting room rented by the hour in the Eastwood neighborhood, a former industrial area now transformed into a creative space with artisanal cafes and art studios nestled among recycled warehouses. Not a high-class place, but not temporary either. Just like his own family, no longer luxurious, but, for the first time, authentic. Lloyd arrived first wearing a worn blue shirt, khaki pants, and construction shoes. He put his hard hat on the table, then sat. No need to be bossy. Dominic didn't offer tea, nor did he need it. Just looked at him, nodded. Patricia walked in later still with the small bag of flowers hanging on her elbow. This time, white daisies. She looked around, then went to pour herself some filtered water and pour more for Lloyd. No one said, but no one objected either. Vanessa arrived a few minutes late. No makeup, white shirt hair tied neatly. She apologized with her eyes, then sat down on the farthest chair. Not because anyone pushed her away, but because she knew which position was proper for her. No one spoke for the first minute. No need. The atmosphere was no longer grainy, just cautious, a type of silence that no longer carries the scent of hiding, but of listening. Dominic opened his mouth. "I didn't call this meeting to apologize to anyone, not to blame, but to reset some principles." Lloyd looked at him, not interrupting. "I will no longer be anyone's shadow, nor will I be the one to deal with the consequences of others' deliberate wrongdoings. Everyone here, including me, will be responsible for themselves, and if one day someone comes back to me hoping I will protect them, I will refuse. Not because I am evil, but because I know clearly I no longer want to repeat that cycle. No one responded. Only Lloyd nodded slightly. I understand, he said. For the first time, Dad understood. Patricia put her hands on the table. She said nothing. But for the first time, Dominic saw that she did not shy away. Her eyes were no longer uncertain. Vanessa took a deep breath. I still don't know what kind of person I will become, but at least now I don't have to pretend to be someone else. Dominic smiled slightly, not in forgiveness, but in recognition. The meeting lasted precisely 38 minutes. No hugs, no tears. They leave individually, not all at once without a flashy ending. But as Dominic locked the conference room door, he knew this wasn't the end. It's a beginning. That evening, he sat back in his office looking out the window, where the streetlights fell on his old car. He took the notebook and flipped to the first page. All great things begin with no longer denying the truth. He wrote another line below. Even if it's true that my family was a failure. I used to think that family is something that cannot be lost. No matter the distance, mistakes, or how many times we don't understand each other, in the end, family is still a place to return to. I was wrong. There are families, like mine, that don't disappear because someone passes away, but because none of them dared to stop to look directly at the crack that was spreading day by day. We used to live under the same roof, but we each built our world with expectations and illusions. My father, Lloyd Walsh, believes that reputation is everything. He built an empire called the Perfect Family, with piles of loans and sweet lies. My mother, a gentle but silent woman, thought keeping the peace was more important than the truth. And Vanessa, my sister, became a product of all that, living in a false light, believing every problem would have someone to handle for her. What about me? If I'm good enough, calm enough, self-sacrificing sufficient, they will see me one day. They will be grateful. They will understand. But no, they just see a convenient person to rely on when their world crumbles. I lost many things that year. Loss of faith. Losing the relationship I tried to hold on to. Lost the concept of unconditional love. But I also kept a few things. I can keep my conscience. When things were shaky, I didn't sign a lie. I do not stay silent when I see something wrong. I did not choose false peace in exchange for a place in the house I was evicted from. I maintain respect for myself and boundaries that I know I cannot cross just to please others. I kept my sanity, something I thought I would lose forever the day my parents called me ungrateful. And I retain a new faith, not through blood and pus, but on change. However small, however slow, however imperfect. Today, 6 months after the collapse of the Walsh family, I look back and am no longer angry. No more looking for revenge. No more if only wishes. I'm just wondering, if a family built on a lie can last 30 years, how long can a family built on the truth, no matter how broken, last? I do not know. But I'm willing to try. How about you? If you've ever fallen into a family where silence is more important than the truth, have been called too rational, too cold, just because you dared to ask questions, leave a comment. I want to hear your story, and who knows, you will also be the one to start over like I did. Don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss true stories like this. Thank you for staying until the end. We will meet again, not in a comfortable place, but in a sincere place.